how much friction is there? Like what the form of ownership for civilians? Go back to this family in Milwaukee.
Yes.
The form of ownership is a wallet.
Yes.
Is that right?
Tremendous friction. The reason this hasn't become hundreds of millions yet is the onboarding. No different than our parents putting a credit card into a computer in 1996 and being scared that it would be stolen, if you remember those days.
Yeah. Or my mother in 2022.
Fair.
Yeah.
Or us even figuring, I mean, I was a curious kid and just didn't understand Prodigy. I didn't know how to get on the internet. And then Mark Andreessen created Netscape Navigator and typing in an address and enter. So we are still, to your point, and I love the question, it is even for me, 2 years ago when I'm like, I'm going in, it was like, this is not so easy. What's a seed phrase and being a custodial owner of your state? It was a lot of friction.
Right.
Over the next decade, that will become the mundane, and that's when it will explode.
I think the analogy is really interesting that I hadn't thought about before. Is there a mosaic Netscape
there is,
Navigator
of course.
for NFTs?
Of course. I believe what I talked about today on stage was this concept of Web 2.5. Everyone's talking 2 and 3. I think there's a chapter here in the next 3 to 5 years, and I've actually been bullish Coinbase, even though they got lots of problems given how overvalued the stock was and where they're at right now. I believe in their CEO, and I actually think they're the most positioned to create what I call a Web 2.5, where they are the holder of the assets. So it is actually against the philosophy of Web3. The philosophy of Web3 is do not allow corporations or others to have control. The problem is everybody loves the wild, wild west, which that is, until you're the one getting shot. So I've watched people on Twitter go crazy and be Web3 maxis and be like, this is the best, fuck the government, fuck the corporations, and then they get their NFT stolen, and immediately they're like, hey government, hey corporation, and so, right? Yeah. And so we're gonna go through this path, but I think your intuition on that insight is right. I do think that the next decade is about education and innovators, whether on the corporate side or the entrepreneurial side, of eliminating friction for the day-to-day. But much like in 1995 where I was a kid and really wasn't a technology kid, what I knew is that people were gonna use this damn thing because it was just gonna change everything. Yeah. That's kind of in the same.
It's interesting, my first email account was a CompuServe account.
So you were there.
I don't know if you remember.
Yeah,
this.
of course I do.
My first email
was that 9234?
It was like 94.
Yeah, makes sense.
My first email address was something like 7462985.
Phone number.
Oh, it wasn't even that.
Oh, just some numbers? Yeah.
At CompuServe.com.
I think mine was gnuts@AOL.com.
But AOL did that kind of onboarding that made it easier from.
Me and a lot of my friends who are like, I would call us purple. We're not red, we're using political standards. Yeah. We're not red or blue on this thing in Web3, we're purple. We're in the middle. Yeah. We're very bullish, but we're not like the metaverse is here tomorrow. It's all about timing, right? Yeah. When we have thoughtful convos where we're being thoughtful, we always talk about what's the AOL moment. Which organization, which entrepreneur is gonna come along and create an onboarding.
That makes a lot more sense.
But what will happen in that very quickly, just to give you the big but, is a lot of people will realize, wait a minute, this isn't actually Web3, this isn't blockchain, because the hypothesis is decentralization creates no power for anyone. Yeah. What we're talking about right now is Web 2.5, something that somebody is still in power of. Yeah. And what, you know what I like about it? I like a world of a mature Web 2.5 and a real Web 3, because then you're giving people options. Hey, do you want to live in Web 3 where, hey, by the way, it's all on you. You better know your shit. You better know how it works. And you have the option, hey, you're a little worried about that. You're a little tech nervous. You're not there yet. Use this Web 2.5, and that's what I think the next decade's about.
But for mass adoption, civilians are going to be indifferent whether it's Web 2.5 or Web 3.0.
They're going to be Web 2.5 because Web 3 is going to be too complicated.
Yeah, exactly. Well, they want.
But look at social media. When I was all gung-ho in 05, 06, it took a while. We have now full adoption in 2022. Most people have some account. Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, something. And I think that is inevitable for Web 3, but it will be a decade and a half, a decade, 2 decades. But starting a year ago to that time, every day things are getting innovated and changing, and the opportunity is extraordinary.